This conference will now be recorded.
Hi everyone, good morning. Today we will see one integration example. This is the first integration example in our sessions. Okay, I want to implement order processing system. Order processing system. It has to perform uh, multiple jobs. As of now, what we are doing is implementing we are implementing a single logic. Whatever services we have implemented in the previous sessions, each service is doing one single logic, correct? So let's say arithmetic operation, it will do addition, subtraction, multiplication. I mean, each operation has one simple logic. Hello world, it has just a concatenation logic. Card validation system, it has a conditional logic. Billing system, it has a logic to calculate the total amount, but at this time it is an array. Okay, so this way each service we have some small logic, but this time in my order processing system, see, this is the program I want to implement. Order processing system, what I want to do here is I want to integrate external programs. I want to integrate external programs. So I mean, so if you see, this card validation system is there, right? Card validation system is an individual program. Billing system is an individual program. I want to utilize these two programs from my order processing system. I want to integrate them from order processing system. Okay. So how to integrate external program in a SOA program. That's what we want to see. Are we clear? So I want to communicate, my order processing system want to communicate with card validation system. Order processing system want to communicate with billing system. So altogether, I want to orchestrate some logic in my order processing system. Okay. So okay, so then what is the expectation from order processing system? So what I want to do is, let's see. I want to supply this kind of input. See this sample. This is the request I am expecting for my order processing system. That means I want one complex element which holds order ID and customer info. Customer info holds customer ID, customer name, and credit card information, card info, credit card number, credit card vendor. I'm just giving some dummy. It's a dummy service, right? I'm not really doing the actual payment. If we really need to do actual payment, our CC number must be a 16-digit number. It needs the display name on the card. It also needs CVV number. It also needs expiry date. All this information required, but I'm really not implementing the actual payment. So it's a simple card validation system, simple card information, and then line item. My order contains multiple line items. Okay, each line item contains item name, item cost, some serial number. Serial number ID is the serial number. 1, 2, 3, 3 items I have. First one, TV, mobile, sunglasses, something like this. I have list of line items in my order. So what I want to do by using this order processing system, first I want to validate the card, and then I want to calculate the total amount, and this is the final response I am expecting. Final response. I'm expecting the order ID. This is my order ID. Okay. I'm expecting order ID. I'll name it as ORD_ID. Just for your understanding. Okay. I'm giving some understandable naming convention. Okay. So I'm expecting order ID in response. Whether the provided credit card is valid or invalid. Provided credit card is valid or invalid. And what is the total cost? What is the total cost? And order completed, successfully completed or not completed, what happened? The status. It may be success, it may be fail, okay, it may be error, anything, any status. Are we good, sir? Okay, this is the expected request, and this is the response I am expecting. See, by looking into the response, what are all the things we need to calculate? Order ID, we can get it from request only. In the request itself, we can get the order ID. Okay. But what else we are looking for? CC validation status. So CC validation status, In order processing system, I don't want to implement any logic to validate my credit card. I want to utilize the existing card validation system. We have a card validation system, right? This one I want to utilize. I want to utilize from order processing system. Okay, I don't want to implement any logic, explicit logic here. Okay, done. But so how to utilize card validation system from order processing system, we need to see. Okay, and then once the card is valid, in case the card is valid, then I want to calculate the total amount. To calculate the total amount, already we have a billing system web service. I don't want to write any logic in my order processing system to calculate the total amount. I want to utilize this billing system and get the total amount. Are we good? See this? Hope you understand the requirement, everyone. So we want to implement order processing system. Okay, but within the order processing system, our expectation is if the card is valid, calculate the total amount. If the card is invalid, don't calculate the total amount. Okay, this is the implementation I want. So to validate the card, I don't want to write any logic in my order processing system. My order processing system should be dependent on card validation system. Okay, if the card is valid, my order processing system should calculate the total amount, but I don't want to write any logic in order processing system to calculate the total amount. I want to depend on billing system. So communicate with the billing system, get the total amount. Okay, so now to implement the required business logic in order processing system, we are not actually writing the business logic within the order processing system. We are integrating with card validation system and billing system. We are integrating with card validation system and billing system. So any questions in the requirement? Are you clear with the requirement? Anyone
Yes,
have
sir, clear.
questions? Clear. Okay. So we can start the implementation. So before we start the implementation, let me, how we start an implementation, anytime if we want to start a new feature, what we are doing, we have to create a new feature branch, correct? Let me go to my Git repository. I will go to Git bash, make sure we are in main branch. First, we need to do git fetch, okay, and then you need to update your Git repository. I mean, you need to update your main branch, git pull origin main. Okay, you need to update your main branch, and then you need to create a new branch. I will say git branch feature slash I will name it as order processing system, OPS. Okay, done. And now check out feature slash OPS. Then now we are in the new feature branch. Go to your JDeveloper. If you want, once close all the files and reopen them. Close everything. Okay. And if any file you want, you can reopen, not an issue. Now what I want to do, I want to create a new project. Which is going to interact with the card validation system and billing system. Observe one important point, guys. Card validation system. Can we test a card validation system program by using SOAP UI? Is it possible or not? Yes, it is possible. We can test card validation system by using SOAP UI. In that case, who is the client of card validation system? When we are testing card validation system from SOAP UI, who is acting as client of card validation system? Can someone respond? Vikram, Sampath, Samaya. I want to test my card validation system by using SOAP UI. Who is acting as client? Who is client? SOAP UI will be the client. If you test your web service by using SOAP UI is your client. If you test your web service by using Enterprise Manager Test Console, Enterprise Manager Test Console is the client. If you want to test your web service by using a browser, browser is the client. Is it clear for everybody?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now when you are testing any web service by using a client, for example, SOAP UI, what you need to test your web service by using SOAP UI? What is the initial thing we need? That is concrete WSDL. If you want to test your card validation system from SOAP UI is your client, and you need concrete WSDL of card validation system. You need to supply concrete WSDL of card validation system to SOAP UI. Then only your SOAP UI will get the capability to test your web service. Okay, if you want to test your web service by using browser, again you need to use the concrete WSDL of card validation system. So in our current case, in the current example, if you see this card validation system, we want to interact from order processing system. Card validation system, we want to interact from order processing system. That means order processing system is the client of card validation system. Is it clear? Order processing system becomes client of card validation system. Any questions? Yes, no, something. Who is the client of card validation system in the current use case?
Order processing systems.
Order processing system. Okay, order processing system becomes the client. Guys, you need to speak out, guys. Otherwise, I don't know whether you are understanding or not. Sampath, Samaya, Vikram, guys, Kaza, you need to speak out. If you don't speak, mostly you don't understand as well. Okay, there is no benefit if you don't understand. Okay, you need to speak out. Right. So here in our case, order processing system becomes the client of card validation system. Order processing system becomes the client of billing system. Okay, that means if order processing system want to communicate card validation system, then we need card validation system concrete WSDL. We should configure inside order processing system. Similarly, we need to configure billing system billing system concrete WSDL. Billing system concrete WSDL. We need to configure to integrate with billing system. Any questions? Any questions from anyone? Okay.
No,
is it
Clear,
clear?
sir.
Done. Now, how to configure this concrete WSDL in order processing system? We will see one by one. Okay. Anyway, I just created a feature branch. I just created a feature branch. Within the feature branch, I want to configure a new SOA project, and I want to call it as order processing system. Let's see. Go to new project. Provide a name called order processing system. Order processing system. Project name is as per your project's naming convention. There is what it is doing. No, sorry, I'm creating application. We need to create the project, right? Why the application is here? Close it. I should go new project. New project. Go to SOA tire. SOA project. Say okay. Update the location, guys. Directory, is it within the repository or not? Just make sure. Okay, and this is order processing system. Order processing system. Okay, you can give some naming convention, say finish. So we are ready with a new project. Within the project, we need to configure all the required components. First, we need a web service. This is our web service, order processing system, and we want it as an asynchronous web service because one of the partner, we are communicating with two partners. One is synchronous partner. Card validation system is a synchronous partner. Billing system is an asynchronous partner. Okay, so I want to interact with two different partners, right? One is synchronous and one is asynchronous. At that time, the requester service, I mean order processing system, must be asynchronous. If one of the partner is asynchronous, the requester service should be asynchronous. Okay, for that reason, I'm using asynchronous BPEL process. Okay, drag drop a BPEL process. You can give a meaningful naming convention. I will say OPS BPEL. Okay, and you can change, if you want, you can change the target namespace practice.com, and I want to make it a synchronous BPEL process. Of course, it has a request and response default XSDs. We can change it once the XSD generated. We can modify it as per our requirement. Okay, now let's click OK. So what will happen? A basic BPEL process. This is the regular process what we do while we are creating any web service. Okay, you observe there is an XSD created, one XSD document and one WSDL document created, and a BPEL document created. Within the BPEL document, if you observe receive activity and callback, because this is an asynchronous service, and here if you see a WSDL document, within the WSDL document, as it is an asynchronous web service, you can observe two port types. Each port type contain an operation, request operation and callback operation. And of course, you have XSD with default structure. This is not enough for us. We need to modify the XSD as per our requirement. I said, right, this is the input structure I am expecting, and this is the output structure I am expecting. Okay, done. Now let's do the modification in your XSD. Go to source view. I just want to modify the XSD as per our requirement. So this is, what is the complex element we are expecting? Order request. Let's create an element, order request. Under this, we want one simple element, order ID, and of course, I want it as an integer. Okay. Under this, I'm expecting again a complex element with two simple elements. You can type it. For the benefit of time, I'm just copy pasting things. Okay, so this is cust info, and within cust info we are expecting two simple elements. What are they? Customer ID, customer name. Customer ID, customer name. Okay, done. And then it is expecting card info. Let's prepare the card info. Within the card info, we need CC number, CC vendor, CC number, CC vendor. Okay. Under this, we are expecting line item. Line item is an array. Observe, line item we need it, but it is an array which comes with three simple elements. Let's check. Line info, line item, not info. Line item. Okay, under that we need ID, it's a serial number, name, product name, whatever the product we are buying, product name. Okay, and then product cost. Okay, make sure any other element we left. This is an array. We want it as an array. Line item, we want it as an array. So how we can make array? Min-occurs equals to 0, min-occurs equals to 0, max-occurs equals to unbounded. Okay, just reformat. You can see the structure. You can go to design view. You can see the entire structure. Order request, which contains order ID, customer info, card info, line item. Line item is an array, 0 to infinity. Okay, and make sure to correct all the data types. Order ID, I want it as an integer. Customer ID, integer. Customer name must be a string. Correct? Customer name. Card info. Card number is an integer. CC vendor, it's a string. Visa card, MasterCard, Rupee card. This way we have cards, right? Card vendor. Okay. And then line item ID is integer, product name must be a string. Okay, product cost can be an integer. Done. So the request XSD is ready. Now I need to concentrate on the response XSD. In the response XSD, we are expecting one complex element and 4 simple elements. Okay, let me name it as order response, and I'm expecting 4 simple elements, 2, 3, 4. Okay, what are they? Order ID, and then CC validation status, credit card validation status, and then total cost, and then order status. Done. Save your XSD. So our request XSD and response XSD are ready as per our requirement. You can see that in the design view. Okay, so this is the request XSD, and then go to response XSD. In the response XSD, we are expecting 4 simple elements. Okay, done. So we modified the complex element within the XSD. See, we modified, this is earlier process and process response. I modified them as process as order request, process response as order response. Immediately this affects your WSDL. If you go to WSDL, in the WSDL message section, these XSD, old XSD names are available. We need to replace them. Okay, remove it, control tab, it will show you all the XSD elements, order request. Okay, you can select order request, otherwise you can type it, not an issue. Okay, order request, and this is order response. But spelling mistake, if you give spelling mistakes, it cannot load. Okay, any spelling mistakes, capital small issues, then WSDL cannot load that XSD, and still it will show you the error. Done. So we are ready with the XSD, and we did the required dependent changes in WSDL. So now let's go back to your composite file. Okay, we are ready with the basic template of order processing system, but how to interact with the card validation system and billing system? If you want to interact with any external program, see, order processing system is one individual program, card validation system is an individual program, billing system is an individual program. Now we want to establish a communication between order processing system to card validation system, order processing system to billing system. In this case, as I told you in the beginning, order processing system acts as a client to your card validation system. So how your client interacts with card validation system? By using the concrete WSDL. So we need to configure concrete WSDL of card validation system within order processing system project, within OPS project. So first, get the concrete WSDL of card validation system. For that, you need to go to your enterprise manager. In enterprise manager, we can get the card validation system program, right? Just go to your enterprise manager. It is taking time to load. Let it load. So hope you are clear, right? We need to get the card validation system concrete WSDL. Once we get the card validation system concrete WSDL, it will be easy for us. I mean, it will. We can process the. We can configure the reference component within the order processing system. Once we got the CVS concrete WSDL, here we need to do a reference component configuration. How to do that, we'll see. I will show you step by step. Let's go to infra. We need to go to deployed composites. Okay, here you can see card validation system. Capture the concrete WSDL. Capture the concrete WSDL. Okay, this is the concrete WSDL. Let me put it in a notepad file. CVS concrete WSDL. Okay, same way we want billing system concrete WSDL. Let's go to billing system, deployed composites. We can go to billing system, get the billing system concrete WSDL. Okay, I just want to change the host name because I'm using my local host. Okay, if it is a remote server, you need to maintain the proper host name here. Okay, done. So we are ready with the concrete visual of card validation system and billing system. Now go to your order processing system. Let's integrate card validation system. I want to integrate card validation system. What we need to do here, I need to configure a SOAP reference component. It's a reference component. Right click here, insert into, you can select SOAP component. SOAP component. This is one approach. There is another approach. Simply you can drag drop. See here we have all these adapters. You can see there is an adapter called SOAP. You can simply drag drop the adapter. Okay, done. So any approach is fine. Either go with right click and select, okay, or drag drop. Any approach is same. Done. Now what I want to do here, I want to do the configuration. This is card validation system reference. Card validation system reference. And you need to provide the WSDL URL, concrete WSDL. Okay. So it's a card validation system. Copy this and then paste it here. Once you paste the concrete WSDL, okay, once you paste the concrete WSDL, just click on the port type. It will automatically load the port types. That concrete WSDL contain port type, right? There is no callback port type for synchronous web service. Card validation system is a synchronous web service. There is no callback port type. Okay, guys, uncheck this checkbox, copy WSDL and dependent artifacts into the project. I mean, what it will do, if you select this option, it will download the WSDL along with XSDs. I don't want it. Okay, if you really need it, you can select that. But for now, in the program, don't select this part. Okay, I want to uncheck this. I don't want to download the concrete WSDL and its XSDs of card validation system. Okay, uncheck this one and make sure your WSDL URL is correct and port type is loaded, and then simply say okay. Don't change anything else. Done. Now what happened? You got a reference component. Okay, a reference component created. Guys, here the important thing is order processing system is a SOA program. Card validation system is a SOA program. Of course, both are two individual programs, correct? They are two individual programs. Even though they are individual programs, and they are doing integration, we are communicating, we want to establish a communication between order processing and card validation system. Even though both are SOA programs, both are two individual web services, okay, we have dependency on the concrete WSDL of card validation system. Not only SOA program, guys, if your card validation system can be a Java web service, your card validation system can be a .NET web service, it can be a Python web service, it can be any technology web service. It can run anywhere in the application server, any application server. Okay. If you want to integrate the service from SOA, you want to call the service from SOA, we need concrete WSDL of card validation system. It can be SOA program, it can be Java web service, it can be .NET web service, it can be Python web service, any technology web service. In our case, card validation system is a SOA web service, but it's no need to be SOA web service. It can be any technology web service. From SOA, order processing system is a SOA program. From SOA program, if you want to integrate any other program, approach will remain same irrespective of technology. The target program technology can be anything. Okay, approach will be same. You just need to, suppose let's assume card validation system is a .NET web service. Even though it is .NET web service, it will have a concrete WSDL. We will ask the .NET team, give me the concrete WSDL of card validation system. They will give you the concrete WSDL something like this. Once they provide you the concrete WSDL, we really don't care what technology it is. We just need the concrete WSDL. That's it. Okay. Once you got the concrete WSDL, you can prepare the reference component as I have shown here. Okay. Any questions? Any questions about reference component?
No, sir.
Okay. Now let's integrate this with our people process. Before I'm doing integration, let's go to source view and observe. Let me go to source view. Observe here, when I configure the reference component, there are few things generated in the backend. Observe this code section, import. This is an import section. See this? We got a import statement. We got an import statement which is importing the concrete WSDL, Okay, and this concrete WSDL not loaded properly, guys. What you can do, of course, our concrete WSDL has an MDS dependency, so it is showing like this. But anyway, just observe what is generated. You don't need to do anything. An import statement generated for our card validation system, correct? And then if you come down, you can see a reference component. A reference component also generated for your card validation system. Okay. While these two things generated, and here it has a location attribute. Import statement contains a location attribute, and then if you see the reference block, in the reference block there is something called WSDL location, and there is one more thing called location. These guys have dependency on the concrete WSDL path. They are using the concrete WSDL path. Observe this URL. Okay, around three different places, this concrete WSDL path loaded. Okay, just observation. Just make sure what is happening in the background. I mean, I configured one reference component. Because of one reference component, two code blocks generated. One is import code block and another is reference code block. Import code block and reference code block. Within import code block, there is a dependency on the concrete WSDL URL called as location attribute. Location attribute has a dependency on the concrete WSDL URL. And then in the reference block, WSDL location attribute and a location attribute. These two properties are also using concrete WSDL URL. Okay, done. Next, let me go to the design view. What I will do, I want to create a binding between people and the card validation system. Guys, if you don't create the binding, what happened? Go inside people. See here, that reference component is not visible here. Reference component is not visible. So suppose if you create the binding, save everything. Okay. Now you can observe the source view. If you observe the source view, earlier we have an import statement, and we have the reference code block. Okay. Other than these two, there is another code block also generated in line number 36. Observe. This is a component section, and you can see a reference code block here. One more reference code block. And this also contains a WSDL location attribute which has a dependency on the concrete WSDL. Okay. Is it clear, everybody? And of course, you can see the wire as well. Wire also generated. This is the binding we created. Okay, OPS people to card validation system. Okay, so total 4 things generated: wire, reference code block with concrete WSDL references, one more reference code block within the component type section, one more reference block. Okay, and then an import statement. Okay, so total multiple places we have dependency on concrete WSDL. Number 1, and this is 2, 3, and this is 4. At 4 places we are using concrete WSDL. Okay, any questions till now from anyone? Any questions?
Yes, sir. No, sir.
Tell me.
Why these many reference blocks, sir, are dependent on concrete
That is
WSDL?
the syntax. This is a people programming language, right? This is the people programming language. That's the syntax of the program. It is importing the WSDL first within your composite. It is importing the WSDL first, and then it is. I mean, it is the syntax of the program. We are not doing the coding. We are not doing the coding, but we are doing the configuration in the graphical view. It's a backend generated code, right? That's it. I mean, there is no specific reason for that. But we will see how it is used. Okay, how it will be used each section. Are we good?
Yes, sir.
Okay, any other question as of now? Okay, now let me talk about an important point here. See guys, now if you do this configuration, whatever the configuration you did, we configured a reference component and we created a binding. And your code, in the source view, there are multiple code segments generated, and each code segment has a dependency on WSDL. Okay, as of now, your code is using concrete WSDL URL. As of now, your code is using concrete WSDL URL. Okay, guys, this is a very dangerous configuration. Okay, why? Because what do you mean by concrete WSDL? Concrete WSDL, we get it from our server. Concrete WSDL is a runtime reference. It's a runtime reference of your web service program, correct? Okay, let's assume if server is down, can we access this URL? Is it possible to access the URL? Server is up and running. As of now, server is up and running. So we are able to access the WSDL. Suppose server is down, can we access this WSDL? We cannot. Okay. So if your program in design time, see, this JDeveloper means what? Design time infrastructure. It's a developer's infrastructure, design time infrastructure. Suppose if if the developer continuously depends on the server, it's something like we are depending on the server, right? While doing the program, while developing the program, we are depending on the server. Okay, I don't want to keep that dependency in my program. I don't want to keep the dependency of server in my program. But my program is already using concrete WSDL. Concrete WSDL we can load only if the server is up and running. If server is down, it cannot load. This component cannot load. Okay, you cannot do the coding. Suppose, let me, okay, I did not done some program, right? I will show you. I mean, I will tell you as of now, later I will show you. If the server is down, we cannot do any activity with this reference component. We cannot do mappings, we cannot do any coding, we have dependency on server. So for that reason, it's always suggestible, avoid dependency on the server. Once you configure the reference component, it's always suggestible to have a local copy of the WSDL and XSD belongs to reference component. It is always suggestible to have local copy of WSDL and dependent XSDs, of your reference component. Okay, so for that, what we can do, if you select this option and say okay, WSDL and XSD will be downloaded into your order processing system program. Is it clear? The concept is clear. If you select this checkbox, copy WSDL and its dependent artifacts. If I select this checkbox and say OK, what happened? This card validation system, WSDL and XSDs will be downloaded into your order processing system project. Okay, that is one approach. But I don't want to maintain card validation system, WSDL and XSDs within order processing system, but I want a local copy. But definitely I'm looking for a local copy. Okay, what we can do, we can dependent on our design time MDS. Your design time MDS already contains your card validation system, WSDL and XSD documents. And design time MDS is accessible to any SOA program at design time and at runtime, both. This MDS it is available. This design time MDS is available in JDeveloper as well as server. Okay, so instead of having local copy of card validation system WSDL into order processing system, I want to depend on MDS wisdom. Okay, so what we need to do, it is the best practice while we are generating any project in any project. When you are doing this integration, it's the best practice to implement the dependencies as local copy. Okay, now what I want to do, I want to remove this. I want to remove the concrete WSDL URL. I want to remove the concrete WSDL URL, and I want to replace with MDS path. So go to card validation system. This is the MDS WSDL, right? Go to WSDL, right click on it, right click on the WSDL, copy path, copy path. Okay, now go back to your notepad file. Just see what is the path we got. Okay, this is the path we got. Before apps folder, whatever you have, remove it. Before apps folder, whatever you have, remove it, and you need to use a keyword called Vora MDS colon. So this becomes MDS path of your WSDL. Copy this and go back to your JDeveloper. Identify the locations where what are all referring concrete WSDL URL, right? Just replace it. Replace with MDS path. I removed the concrete WSDL URL and replaced it with MDS path. And do this in all the places. One is import section, another is reference code block under component section, reference code block under component section. Here you can see WSDL location. Replace this guy, replace the concrete WSDL with MDS path, and then go to actual reference component. Here we have two elements, two attributes, not elements, two attributes. One is WSDL location. Replace the WSDL location. Okay, done. And if you see line number 47, guys, this is not a design time property. This is not a design time property. Okay, I no need to modify this guy. We use this property at runtime. I mean, this property is useful after you deploy the program into server. I will show you what I mean. I'm not changing this property. This attribute I'm not changing. I will leave it. I will leave it as is. And you can say, if you say XYZ also, not an issue. Because I will show you how to handle this property and what we will do with this property. But this is not a design time property. When you are developing the program, this property is nowhere used. Okay, but this property is called as runtime property. I will tell you what is this runtime property. But about three attributes, line number 42, WSDL location within the reference code block, line number 37, which is WSDL location attribute under reference code block, which is a subcomponent of component, which is a subelement of component. Okay, and import statement. These are the properties used at design time and runtime, both design time and runtime. Okay, so design time, I don't want to depend on concrete WSDL. I want to depend on local copy. Local copy you can maintain within the program or within the MDS as well. So I am using MDS copy of the WSDL. Any questions as of now from anyone? Any questions from anyone?
No, sir.
No. Okay, just go to design view, save everything. Okay, I suggest you just close the documents and reopen the composite. Okay, close the document and reopen the composite. Done. If you see now, if you see this, your reference component, just double click on it. You can see it is loading. It is loading with MDS visitor. It is loading with MDS visitor. Okay, anyway, I have shown you the properties, right? What are all design time properties? What are all runtime properties? All design time properties must be loaded with MDS visitor path. Done. Okay, now if you go back to people process, okay, if you observe here, a new partner link configured. I mean, we created this binding, right? When you establish the binding, either service component or reference component, both are displayed inside people as partner links. There is no location priority. I mean, it can be at right side or left side, anywhere. You can change it. So you can display it to move to opposite swim lane if you want. It's not really matter inside people process, either service component or a reference component called as partner links. Okay, and you can change the location as well. You can move them to opposite swim lane. If you want, you can move them. That won't change. If you move the partner link swim lane, that won't change the behavior. Even though you move them left side and right side, it is the service component and this is the reference component only. Okay, behavior won't change, just the display location changed. Okay, it won't change its behavior. Anyway, just for our convenience purpose, I'm just moving the code. I'm moving the partner link to the reference place. Okay, now in BPEL process, we need to do some implementation, some logic we need to implement to interact with this card validation system. Okay, before that, just observe what are all the variables we have. We have an input variable which is handled by this receive activity. We have an output variable which is handled by this callback or invoke activity. Okay, now I want to write some logic how to interact with the card validation system. So guys, I want to write some logic, right? I want to keep it in a scope activity. A scope activity. Scope activity is something like grouping. It groups the activities, that's it. Okay, I mean, in a traditional programming language, we use curly braces, right? When you are writing some program, we use some curly braces. This is a scope of the program. Okay, similarly, in your BPEL process, you can maintain scope. So this is a global scope, guys. You see, this is a global scope. Within the global scope, you can have local scopes as well. Use this scope activity. Let me drag drop the scope activity. Okay, in the scope activity, what I want to do, I want to write the logic which is required to integrate with this card validation system. Okay, for that reason, I want to give a meaningful name, scope underscore card validation system. I'm just giving a meaningful name, nothing else. Are we good? Okay, now within the scope, see guys, this is global scope. Here you can see the global scope and this is local scope. Okay, both are having same options, almost same options you can see here, and both are having variables option. Suppose if you define a variable within this scope that treated as a local variable, if you define a variable within this scope that treated as global variable. Okay, I will show you how to define the local variables. Anyway, so within the scope, what I want to do, I want to integrate with card validation system. So you need to use an activity called invoke activity if you want to call any external programs. You need to use something called invoke activity to call any external program. Drag drop the invoke activity here, okay, and create a binding between invoke activity and your reference component. Okay, just leave the pop, let's just leave the cursor. You can see a pop-up. Okay, this is one approach. Otherwise, you can simply double click on the invoke activity. You will get the same pop-up, but you need to select the partner link. You need to browse the partner link. Our partner link is card validation system reference. Okay, so any approach is fine, whether you create the binding, drag drop the line and create the binding, or you browse the pop-up, anything is fine. I will give a meaningful name for this invoke activity, invoke card validation system. Invoke card validation system. And then this port type loaded and card validation system has only one operation. Card validation, if card validation system has multiple operations, you need to select proper operation here. Okay, and then guys, this is input variable and output variable for card validation system. Okay, if you want to send whatever data you want to send to card validation system, that must be in this input variable. Whatever data you are receiving from card validation system will be available in this output variable. Okay, now create variable, just simply click plus icon, that's it. Okay, you can give a meaningful naming convention. I will say invoke CVS input variable, invoke CVS input variable. Okay, and I want to make it local variable, guys. I want to make it local variable. Done. And I want to create an output variable. Click plus icon. And this also I want to make it local variable. invoke CVS output variable. Done. Apply and OK. Once you are done with this, you can observe within the scope there are two variables created. These are local variables. Local variables within the scope. Within the scope, I will show you what I mean by within the scope. Let's say I have an assign activity which is within the scope. Within the scope, open it. See here, you can see all the variables. These are global variables. These are global variables, process level, your people level. Okay, people level global variables. And these are scope level variables, scope level local variables. Okay, suppose if I place the same assign activity out of scope, if you go to the if you open the assign activity, you see only global variables. You cannot see local variables. Is it clear? You understand the difference between local and global variables? Local variables are accessible within the scope. Local variables are accessible within the scope. You cannot access them out of scope. You cannot access them out of scope. Okay. Now, anyway, what we need to do, we need to send some data. We need to send some data to process by this card validation system. What we are doing, our order processing system is receiving this input. Our order processing system will receive this input. Once order processing system receives this input, our first order processing system has to do the card validation, whether the provided credit card is valid or not. If the credit card is valid, then go for calculation of total amount and generate the bill. Okay. If the card is not valid, there is no use of calculating the total amount. Correct? For that reason, first I want to calculate the total amount. First I want to validate the credit card, whether the provided credit card is valid or invalid. Okay. So to do that, I don't want to implement any logic in my order processing system to validate the credit card. I just want to integrate with card validation system. But to work with card validation system, we need to supply some input. How the card validation system will decide whether the provided credit card is valid or invalid. So by providing the input, right, we need to supply some input. Okay, how we can supply the input? We are going to use this invoke activity, who is going to send the input, and the same invoke activity receives the response. The same invoke activity receives the response. Okay, for that we are using invoke input variable and we are using invoke output variable. So you need to keep the data, whatever data you want to send to card validation system, that data must be in this input variable. Whatever output generated at card validation system, that output will be available in the output variable, invoke output variable. Okay, so what you need to do, you need to copy the required data by using an assign activity. You can copy the required data from source variable to target variable. My source variable is input variable. My source variable is an input variable, and my target variable is invoke input variable. So this is very important to identify what is the source variable and what is the target variable when we are doing an integration. Okay. So what is your target variable expecting? Your target variable is expecting CC name, CC vendor, these two things. Okay, but your source variable contains a lot of data, but target variable is not asking for everything. Target variable is very clear. It needs only CC number and CC vendor. That's it. Your card validation system request. Okay, just copy the required data. CC number. Okay, copy CC number and CC vendor. Done, sir. I want to copy required data from my OPS input variable. This is OPS input variable to card validation system input variable, CVS input variable. Okay, whatever your external program is expecting, whatever data your external program is expecting, that data you need to supply to the external program. Any questions as of now? Any questions?
No, sir. Clear.
Clear? Now, so once you supply this input, once your assign activity copied the required data from input variable to invoke input variable, your invoke activity will send the input to target service. Target service will be executed, and target service, it's a synchronous web service. This is synchronous web service. Your target service will send a response back. Whatever response is coming back, Your invoke activity receives the response and stores the response in this output variable. Okay, let's test the program till this point. Let's test the program. Okay, let me deploy the program up to this point, and is it working as we are expecting or not? We'll test. Okay, I just do test my program at a logical end. Okay, one small thing we implemented, that is working or not working, we want to test. Okay, if you go to your enterprise manager, go to SOA folder, SOA folder. Here we can see the deployed services, right? So guys, I want to test this order processing system multiple times. So it is always better you can go with SOAP UI testing. Okay, because in SOAP UI you can save the client application. Okay, I'm testing order processing system multiple times. For that reason, it is better option to go with SOAP UI. So for that, first go to order processing system, the deployment completed, right? Go to order processing system, get the concrete visual of order processing system, go to SOAP UI, create a new SOAP project. Okay, give a meaningful name for this program. I will localhost, and this one I will give a name as OPS system client. Okay, this is a client of our order processing system. Save the program. Save the program. I want to save it somewhere on my desktop. I'm maintaining a folder on my desktop for all my SOAP UI projects. Okay, save all. Go to the port. This is the request port. I want to test from here. Order ID. I will say something as order ID. And this is my customer ID. This is customer name. Assume this is credit card number 1234. Credit card vendor. Okay, and item, line item 1, product name something TV, and product cost something around 1 lakh. Okay, and then copy the line, second line. I'm using 2 lines. Anyway, we are not processing this data. As of now, we are not doing any logic to calculate the total, right? Okay, something. I provided some 2 lines of information, 2 lines of order items. Okay, and then some request, all the required data I populated here. Submit the request. Once you submit the request, guys, you can see the instance here. Okay, let me submit the request. Order processing system also an asynchronous web service. You cannot see the response here. Okay, you need to go to the instance, submit the request, and go to the instance. Okay, done. It is submitted. Now go to your SOA instance. Check the latest instances. You can see the instance. Okay, search for recent instances. Okay, you can see one instance here. Open it. Observe what it is doing. See how our program executed. Our order processing system. See, this is how it is started. This is the first component. First component, right? Client EP. Client EP is the first component, and the control went to OPS people. Control went to OPS people. In OPS people, we are calling card validation system reference. This OPS people is calling card validation system reference. Okay, this card validation system reference is actually the card validation system program. See, CVS people client EP, CVS people client EP. Okay, and this component is calling your people component, CVS people. Okay, so guys, this observe here, this part, because your card validation system is a SOA program, within the server, I mean order processing system and card validation system, both are in the same SOA server. For that reason, it is showing you order processing people instance, card validation system people instance. Let's assume this card validation system is a .NET web service. .NET web service. So in that case, you cannot see this box. Whatever the box I draw, this section is not visible in the instance. This section is not visible. Is it clear? If your program, if your external program is not a SOA program and not within the server, okay, then you cannot see this part. Because our order processing system and card validation system both are in the same server, both are SOA programs and running in the same server, you can see the entire instance, order processing instance, card validation system instance as a single instance. Okay, any questions? Any questions as of now?
No, sir, clear.
Okay, you can open card values, you can open OPS, just open this OPS system. You can see what we received. We received the input, whatever the data we submitted from SOAP UI, you can see the input. And after that, you can see the scope started. Within the scope, we copied the data. We copied the data into invoke input variable. We copy the data into invoke input variable. We are not able to see the data because the audit trial may be in production mode. Okay, I will change the audit trial. Then you will get the maximum instance. And then what happened? Invoke activity. This invoke activity, if you open, you can see this invoke activity, invoke input variable, invoke output variable, invoke input variable, and invoke output variable. Invoke input variable, we are sending the data to card validation system. See this request. This is the card validation system request structure. Okay, we are sending the data to card validation system. Card validation system will execute the logic and send a response back. It sends a response back. Are we good? And the response stored in the invoke output variable. This is the output XML. This is the variable. Okay. You clear? The process is clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Any questions?
Yes, sir.
Who is speaking? So can you give me confirmation, everybody? Say yes or no, whether you understand it or not.
Yes, sir, clear for me.
Okay. How about you, Samaya? Vikram?
Yes, sir. We are clear.
Okay, done. So this is, I mean, observe while you are doing the practice, observe what each variable is doing, and I suggest you to keep the audit level information, audit level property, right? Keep it in development mode or change it at server level. If you change it at server level, I shown you in the previous sessions, right? Common properties, then you will get the maximum information in the instance. Okay, my server level property I will change. Next time onwards, every program will be in the same audit level state. Okay, I will stop the service for today. I mean, I will stop the session at this point of time. We'll continue in the next session. So meantime, if you have any questions, let me know. Any questions, whatever we discussed in the session, whatever concepts we discussed in the session, let me know if you have any questions. Can you do the practice at this point? Everyone? Okay, let me stop the recording.